Now then, here we are, broadcasting live to all 23,000 members of UK Crime Book Club, who I should imagine have tuned in. They wouldn't just join a club and then not involve themselves, would they, Chris? I
I
can't
can't
imagine
imagine
that.
any of them would do that.
That would be wrong. That'd be wrong and fun. You wouldn't even deserve your badge, as far as I'm concerned. Um, well, anyway, for those of you who don't know this, I am David Mark, and for the past 10 years, I've been a internationally best-selling crime novelist, um, critically acclaimed around the world, and somehow managed to make no money out of any of it. So I still find myself in situations where, because I'm so desperate for approval, people ask me to do stuff and I instantly say yes. Which is why at this time on a Sunday evening, I find myself the honour and privilege of chatting to an old mate of mine who, well, we've known each other for a very long time, haven't we, Chris? It's worrying how long we've known each other.
Did we
We've,
have? Yeah, I remember when you were seeing you in the George pub in Hull many years ago, and chatting
it,
to you then when you
it
were a
was it was a
journalist.
different world. It was a different world, and I was a
Wasn't
very
it?
different man, shall we say?
Well, yeah,
Um,
we were.
so for the uninitiated, I write crime fiction. My books are set mostly in Hull. I write police procedurals featuring the marvelous Detective Sergeant McAvoy, recently promoted to inspector. Um, I, I I write lots of other things too. Ex-journalist, um, ex lots of things really. I don't know what I presently am. There's more things that I'm ex than I'm currently, but nonetheless, I believe that there's still brighter days ahead. So yeah, I write books. I teach crime fiction. I teach creative writing. I'm a fellow of the Royal Literary Foundation. I am a fucking big deal, if I'm honest, Chris. There's no
I
two
know
ways
that, mate.
about
Yeah.
that. Um, of course, that's just what I'm projecting. On the inside, I'm still just a broken down husk. Uh, Now, how are you going to compete with that? Tell the lovely
Well,
ladies and gentlemen all about the Chris Speck story.
there's not much to tell, really, Marco. I'm a teacher. I teach English to foreign people, but I also write books for the last 10 years. I've not written as many books as you have, but I'm on your heels, and they do okay these days. Yeah, they do okay. My books, some of them are about crime. They're all set in East Yorkshire,
Mm.
and they're all feature the people and the passions of East Yorkshire. So I write some historical fiction, some modern fiction, but yeah, it's going good. It's going good. I also play a lot of music. I play in a band called Black Kez. Um, that's very different from writing, but
Well,
yeah,
it's
that's
it's
the only thing I do.
creative. It's you're reaching down into the darkness and creating something beautiful. There's no two ways
Well,
about
I wouldn't say it's beautiful, Marco. You haven't. I don't know if you've heard
you're
Black Kez
creating
before.
something loud. That's the
It's well, yeah, it's loud, and it is a thing. Whether it's good or not, it is a thing. But
it
yeah,
is a real
creative stuff
thing.
is what gets us, what keeps us calm. Is that right, Marco? How do you find it? Is your creativity? Is it something that helps your mental health and well being?
Well, put it this way: when I'm writing, I don't dream at all. I sleep, and then I wake up, and there's been nothing between one point and the next point. When I'm not writing, I don't sleep, or if I do manage to get some sleep, it's tortured and anguished and horrible. So if that isn't a perfect proof that my brain is hardwired for creativity, then I don't really know what else is. I mean,
Yeah,
for all that I can be a bit glib about certain things, I'm incredibly evangelical about the importance of creativity and what it actually
I'd
does
agree.
for you as a human being. Um,
Yeah,
I don't really know what I'm for if I'm not channeling reality and creating something that's like a cracked mirror version of it.
definitely.
I sometimes wonder that people who don't write or don't paint or don't play music are like, it's not even that you're not living a full life. It's to me, it's not, you're not even living.
I
I,
agree with you, and I think
I,
that a lot of people in the modern world they don't allow themselves to be creative, and actually, it's a
mm,
natural thing. It's like running or walking or cooking. It's just a very normal thing, and my daughter's a very creative person as well. She plays a lot of guitar. She writes a lot of songs, and she comes and
oh,
tells me
wonderful.
that all her friends who can't write songs. It's like, but surely they
It,
can write bad songs.
well,
Everyone
it
can write
does.
a bad song.
It doesn't make any sense to me. I mean, for me, it all starts very young when you've got imaginative play. And I'm a huge believer in the importance of imaginative play.
Yeah, I do.
I think that it's one of the most important things you can do with your kids is get down on your knees with them and play with their toys and invest in their universe and do the silly voices and make your characters real people, and you'll find that you tune into a frequency together that nobody else can ever touch. You build worlds together, and I'm very fortunate in that I live in that headspace all the
Yeah,
time.
yeah,
And
yeah,
I'm a kind of overly attentive dad in that my children just kind of in the 80s you used to get a baked potato wrapped in tinfoil and stuck cheese and pineapple sticks into it. That basically, my heart is that potato, and my children are just driven in cheese and
good.
pineapple on
Yeah,
sticks. So I spend my whole time thinking about them and trying to live in their world for as long as they'll let me. You know what I
it
mean?
is very sweet, isn't it? Do
It's
you
it,
find that your family are an inspiration for you then, Marco? Do they help you write, or do they
oh,
hinder you?
yeah. I mean, I've always said, and I wrote a memoir last year
Yeah, you did. It
detailing
was
some.
good. Yeah,
Oh, did you read it?
yeah. It's quite
Oh, right.
powerful,
Oh,
man.
then yes. Well, we'll get on to that. But suffice to say that you know, sorting out the wheat from the chaff inside my head has been a big job. It's taken me a long time to work out what's me, what's my illness, what's my addiction,
Yeah,
and trying to dissemble all that and trying to disentangle it has taken a lot of work, and it's work I couldn't have done without them, and I wouldn't have
yeah,
seen the point of doing it without them either. So, yeah, for all the people who are always asking me, advice about how to be a creative person with a few loose screws and live a good life, it's kind of the only advice I can really give is to kind of embrace hope. And when you embrace hope, then you sometimes you meet the people who help you on your journey. But
aye.
that makes me sound like some sort of weird guru, and I don't even know if it's helpful. So, I just sometimes you just want to reach inside yourself and just say, take some of that, whatever that is. It's suddenly I'm working. I didn't used to be. So,
But
but I mean, you've had
go
you've
on.
had your fair share of. Well, I mean, you've been a family man as well, haven't you? You understand
Yeah, well,
that.
yeah. I'm a family man for sure. But I mean, my kids, they think about my novels and my music. They just kind of think of it as just something that their dad does. Like tinkering with a car in the shed. It's something that they should avoid and really not be interested in. But every so
Yeah,
often, they'll say, I'll say, I'm doing this, or I'm going to see this person, or my book's got
it,
this, and they'll
It
say,
does
oh,
look. It looks suspiciously like when we're creating and we're working. That's what we're doing. That's our job. But it does look suspiciously like sitting down and staring at the wall, doesn't it?
yeah, yeah, or enjoying yourself. That's
Yeah.
like
Oh. There's nothing to
you shouldn't be
hate
doing
more.
that. If you're working, you shouldn't be enjoying yourself. You
Yeah.
should be like
Yeah.
getting dirty or.
Yeah. I'd like to be able to put like a sandwich board on that says "Genius at Work." Just because they don't know. You could have been just this close to the perfect way to make chapter 14 come alive, and
Yeah.
then they come and ask for crisps. So, you'll never know that we could have been millionaires, and you've blown
Well,
it.
I
Oh,
mean, my kids don't ask for crisps anymore. They want booze or money or
yeah.
they want
Well,
me to
a
tune their guitar
lift.
or something like that.
Yeah.
You've got a big one as well, haven't you?
Yeah.
Your
Yeah. I've
your daughter. Yeah, cool. So I
sorry.
know we're
What?
here. We're meant to be talking about Hull Noir.
Oh God. Yeah. Yeah.
Tell me about what is Hull Noir to you, as far as it's a
Well,
difficult one,
on top of the rather marvelous festival
of course.
that did rather well a couple of years back. To, right, I'll try not to make it too much about me because I do have that tendency.
That's all
However,
right, mate.
the difference between failure and success for me, or whatever constitutes success, for many years I tried to become a novelist, and people in London wouldn't let me because they wanted my books to be something that I didn't want them
Yeah,
to be. So I had agents and editors and whatnot trying to steer me down a certain path, or at least it felt like they were. And what was really lacking from my books was light, was heart and hope.
okay.
So I was really good at darkness, but I had no heart, no hope in it. And somehow, when I moved to Hull to work at the Yorkshire Post as a reporter, there was something about that landscape that allowed me to view in a more panoramic sense because it was just this perfectly self-contained microcosm in that whatever I wanted to write about, Hull and East Yorkshire kind of provided it for me.
Mhm.
So it meant that I could put a character into that environment and move him around the board and allow myself to never get bored with the narrative process because there was always something new. In a morning he could be chatting to somebody in a doorway on Orchard Park as it was at the time, um, and then be popping to West Ella in the afternoon,
Oh, very
and
posh.
exactly. But there was something about that being able to walk in all worlds that made me think of this outsider, somebody who would need to be basically an outsider in all environments, which made me think about who would that be in this day and age. And I came up with this character who was the son of a crofter from the Highlands of Scotland, and came down to Hull as a police officer, and sort of found a home there and found love, and he just
But that's
kind
why
of
it's really
allowed
good,
me to, yeah.
Michael, because he can explain to the reader, what Hull's about, whereas a copper from
That's
Hull
the
would not
thing. I
be able
mean,
to do that. So that's why it's
I,
great.
I'm a great believer in author as correspondent. I think a lot of what you do is you find the right mouthpiece to be able to report back to the reader, and you don't know your readers. Hopefully, there's going to be thousands of the buggers. You're never going to meet them. So the only way you get to make this connection is to be able to create the right canvas and to move the right people around on that canvas. And Hull just had this. I don't know. When you step back and look at a Lowry, and
Yeah,
sudden,
yeah,
and you go in on one of these little matchstick bed, and you just think, where's he going? And
yeah,
if you're anything like my mind, you can walk him out of the frame, and you can walk him into your story. And there was just something about Hull that did that for me. It's just it gives you the bleakness and the beauty in a way that the moors at Haworth somehow need nature to do, whereas
yeah,
I can do that on Ferrens Way with the
yeah,
with the lights of the lights and the rain and the buses and
yeah,
some spice head eating a pizza in a doorway and dropping a bit
yeah.
on a pigeon, just all those things that just give it vitality, and
I mean,
it just
I
made the
think you
difference.
can see that anywhere really. I mean, Hull's the city that I know best really,
Mm,
because I spent so long here and I know the people and I know the characters. So it's easy for me to travel that short distance from West Ella, which is very posh, to Springbank, which is run down. And you can do that in a car in 20 minutes anyway. So I feel as though I know the city and I
yeah,
know the people, and the people are actually what I think Hull Noir is really. They're kind of horrible but kind of nice.
yeah,
I mean,
yeah. That
they'll tell you what they think of you. They'll tell you you're horrible, but they only do that if they like you.
yes,
They're not
that
nasty to you
is.
unless you're their friend, which is ironic. I don't know
It's
if
a
they do that in
strange
Hull
one
here.
because it's the kind of place where you'll walk into a bakery on Hessel Road, and they'll look at you with what seems like absolute contempt, like just like as if you've just dragged yourself in like a slug, and then suddenly something will click, or they'll give you your attention, and then you're in there 20 minutes having a conversation.
Oh yeah,
And
yeah.
it's a very strange mentality, but it's
And
kind of appealing.
you have to prove yourself as well in Hull a lot. I think, even if you're from this city.
Yeah.
Certainly, because I wrote that book of North Sea Tale, a murder mystery on a trawler, and I interviewed a lot of trawler guys about it. And before they talked to me, I had to spend at least an hour
Mm,
making sure that they knew I wasn't an idiot. And
yeah.
it is a bit tiring, really. And
Oh,
and so that and that's like Hull all over. You've really got to prove, that I'm all right. I'm one of you. I'm prepared to work hard. I'll listen to you.
yeah.
It's even when I used to go boxing training. I went to Hull boys boxing for about 2 years, and
Mm,
I remember the first month I just had to stand in a corner and throw shadow punches before anyone had even talked to me.
yeah.
But
Yeah.
after that, they would help you. So I think the people of Hull are like that. They're cruel, but they're kind as well.
Yeah.
And it's good to
Well,
hear you heard that too.
it was a perfect place to be a journalist because you didn't have to work very hard. Yeah, essentially, you could go and stand at the end of the bar in any pub in the old town, and if you didn't come back with a story or two, you were really doing poorly. Because the thing is that the humor was so dry and so
Oh yeah,
harsh as well.
yeah,
So
that's true.
like, and you'd hear about these marvelous characters who, oh, have you heard Fred the Barge is on his way in? Oh, you best let Dennis the racist know, right? And you'd this tantalizing glimpse of a world of Fred the Barge and Dennis the racist, and you'd think to yourself, that was said with a kind of affection. I need to know what the dichotomy
Yeah,
is
yeah,
here.
yeah.
And then
They'd be
you'd
good friends, people who said that kind of thing to each other.
Oh, it's glorious. It's just so yeah. I mean, I was still early 20s when I moved to Hull, and yeah, as long as you could, as long as you paid your round, and as long as you could, as long as you were willing to listen more than you talked,
Very true. Yeah,
people take you into their confidence. It's only
yeah,
when you say, "Do you mind if I write a story about it?" They're like, "Oh no, I don't want to make a fuss," or or,
yeah.
or don't let the second ex know about that one, or she'll be after more money, stuff like that. But
But, I mean, there's also an element of hope which comes through that humor is the fact that you should never boast, you should never big yourself
oh
up,
no,
and that
no,
comes from the
that's
ships as well because they didn't want to invite bad luck. So boasting in this part of the world is like the wrong thing to do. And
oh
I don't think
completely,
in cities like Liverpool and Manchester you can get away with saying how good you are, and in
yeah,
London you can say, oh yeah, I'm great, I'm the best. But people around here they hate that sort of thing. And
yeah.
I don't know, is that true in Cumbria as well? Would you say, Dave? Or would you?
Well, it's a funny thing in Cumbria in that certainly when I was growing up, it was a very self-conscious kind of atmosphere. People like didn't want to be. Well, there's this rather curious word in Cumbria is that if something's shan, then you're drawing attention to yourself. For
Oh, really?
basically, it
Okay.
means it's like hyper embarrassing. It's like no
Okay.
cringe, or as my teenagers say now, it's cringe. So the
Yeah.
idea of being shan was absolutely the worst thing imaginable
Yeah.
as a teenager. Whereas me, because I've kind of always been a bit extroverted, and I didn't ever mind people looking and listening. That was kind of it was all right. I was always kind of embarrassed about that. So you'd go to a gig in Carlisle, and these people who would have had standing ovations all across the country. Nobody would stand up in Carlisle because it was a bit shan,
Too
and it
too
was
sharp, too cringe.
yeah. And so but they'd all applaud and
Yeah.
go home and say, "Oh, it was good that." But even that
Oh,
was
yeah.
like, "Oh, it was good that." No, no, yeah, shut up. You know,
Maybe it's a northern thing then, Maybe it's like that kind of idea that you shouldn't like shine or try and be
yeah.
brilliant because
I,
you're bringing
I
attention to yourself.
well, there is a very it is a very northern man aspect of you've got to be kind of doer, and you don't make a fuss.
Just crack
Was
on.
Yeah, just yeah, all right, just let's set to.
Aye.
And that was why I always felt like such a complete and total stranger where I was dropped, and that's kind of why
Yeah.
when I was writing about McAvoy and Hull, it
Yeah.
was easy for me to channel that
Yeah. I can
because
see that.
I've never really felt at home anywhere,
Yeah.
um, but I've always been able to jot down the anecdotes and the little curiosities and those little idiosyncrasies, but I've never been with a sense of this is my environment because I think as a writer
Well, there's
you
that sense of other, isn't there? That you always
exactly.
carry around with you.
Yeah, yeah. I,
And
I, I mean, I don't know how people who aren't writing deal with their everyday. I mean, like, I find it like I take life full in the face now in full sobriety, right? And the only thing that I can do with the things that cause me grief and distress, and is to essentially turn it back into something and hand it back. Um,
absolutely, it's catharsis, isn't it? I mean, that's you do that with writing. I do that with music. Anything that's
yeah,
bothering you, you can put it on that page, or you can
yeah.
sing about it, and it's gone.
Because otherwise it's carcinogenic, isn't it? It just
Definitely, yeah,
it settles inside you. So that's one of the joys of teaching creative writing and helping with the mentoring that I do is even if you don't end up on a bookshelf in Waterstones, that act of creativity of making something happen that didn't exist before. I just think it's so healthy and helpful,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
it's just good for the soul.
And
So,
also doing something you didn't think you could possibly do.
oh yeah, yeah,
And you
that's
must see that with the students that you help.
oh completely. When you see that joy of somebody who thinks I'd like to do this, but I don't think I can do this, when you can help them have that self belief and put some tools in the toolkit that allow them to turn it into something that they would read and then even better feel proud of. Oh, it don't get much better than that.
That's
It's
so.
a
When you were first writing, Marco, did you have anyone who sort of guided you as you would guide some of the people that you help?
no, and I think that's probably my choice. I became a journalist at 17, so I was in a very adult world, very young. So I kind of thought that whatever was required, I'd get through hard graft and
Yeah,
application. So
that's
there were
very
probably
northern as well.
yeah, yeah, exactly. So there were probably people who would have helped if I'd asked, but no, I genuinely believe that the way to do it was trial and error,
Yeah, me
and
too. Really.
there was a lot of error. There was a lot of me. It was a lot of existential bollocks. A lot of the time, it was a lot of me trying to work out what am I for? What is the act of writing for? What am I trying to do here? Am I trying to earn myself a blue plaque one day? Am I trying
Yeah.
to make my mark as a great artist of my time? Or am I?
Yeah. What
It's
helped me very much was because I play in this band called Black Keys, and we're
mm,
pretty bad. We're like middle-aged guys who play skiffle punk
you're
music.
great. I've heard you before. You're awesome. Yeah,
Well, but I mean, the point is about Black Keys. We sort of came together in our 40s and realized, we weren't ever going to make it as musicians, but that wasn't the point.
yeah,
And it was a beautiful thing to sort of realize that no promoters in the city would put us on, so we put ourselves on.
love
And
it.
the beautiful thing was that it didn't really matter if we're successful or not, and that's really what helped me with the writing, to be honest. Because the idea to think, look, it doesn't matter if this works or not. That's not
Yeah,
the point. And
yeah,
and and it sort of it gives you an armor that is unbreakable because someone can say, well, your writing's rubbish, and you can say, well, kind of I knew that, I'm there. So anything that works is a success. So yeah, I think when you realize that you're probably not going to be the greatest writer ever in the world, but that's fine because you are what you are and you do the best you can.
yeah, yeah. And I mean, the thing is, I drove myself mad with the need to be this.
Right.
The not being an author was was unforgivable
Yeah.
as a vision of my future, and anything less than the actual vision that I had was going to fall way short. Which is why I did drive myself genuinely round the bend in pursuit of the elusive book deal, and
But
there
when
is
you got
still a
it,
part of me.
when you
Say
got
again,
that
mate.
deal, Marco, did it feel like you'd achieved it? You were
It did for about 20 minutes. I was the happiest man alive. I genuinely, if it was a Rocky movie, that would have been my moment,
running up the steps.
Yeah, well, the funny thing is that because I went from having no interest in me at all, I could no nobody, people recognized I was a good writer and that I was good at what I did, but nobody wanted to sign me. And then suddenly to have written a book that five different publishing houses were bidding for,
And this is
and they were
Dark Winter, isn't it?
yeah, Dark Winter was the first one, and they were ringing me at work to try and persuade me to go with them. I still just mad to think about it.
Great
Just
feeling.
genuinely mad because the daft thing is that now good things happen and I can enjoy them, I can celebrate them, and it's like, oh, brilliant, that happened. But at that point, I was so unhappy in where I was and who I was
Yeah.
that so much had been put into this idea that if I got a book deal, I'd feel better. Um, and it wasn't really like that at all. It was finally I can breathe.
All
I've
right.
achieved this thing.
You're
But
a
that,
valid person.
yeah, yeah, that's the thing. I have achieved what I set out to achieve.
And
And
your
I was
mum
like,
couldn't
oh,
say to you, "Oh, David, why did you spend all that time in your bedroom on your computer? Why have you been reading books? Why don't you go to something better?" You can say, "Oh,
yeah,
because I'm a writer."
Yeah, that's the thing. It was the sense of ultimate validation,
Yeah.
and it added an air of legitimacy to everything I'd ever thought, done, or been,
Yeah. Cool.
which permitted me to view all of my many indiscretions through a totally different lens. It was all part of some great
Oh,
plan
you were
for me.
allowed to do it.
Yeah, it was
Yeah. Right.
meant to be because it's got me here.
Yeah.
Um, and then it kind of occurred to me, oh, bollocks, you're only 33. You might not die for another 50 years. Now what? Um, and that was a fairly devastating moment. In the same moment that I'd got everything I ever wanted, I was like, oh, I'm still an asshole.
I know
Um,
it's still you're still you
yeah,
essentially, however successful you are, and
yeah,
it's not going to change anything. It's not going to make
no.
you any different.
And that was a very difficult thing to come to terms with. Um,
But
the
it's afforded you a wisdom, Marco, that you probably might not have had you not.
exactly. I mean, that's the thing. I thought the whole thing was about me. It was inherently selfish. The
Yeah,
pursuit that this thing, as if the world needed another crime novelist. You know what I mean? Um, it would have the crime world would have survived if I'd never been published. So it was only ever for me, and
yeah,
I threw everything into this one pursuit. So I got it, and it was great, and that was wonderful, and they gave me loads of money, and everything was terrific. But it's like when you go on holiday and you think I'll be great, I'll be happy when I get on holiday, and
yeah.
you would be, but unfortunately you've brought you with you. You, you
Yeah,
know, yeah. Damn it, I'm still here. So
yeah, yeah.
so yeah, that was
Very
so it took
interesting,
me a
mate.
few years to kind of work out what it was all about, what it was for,
Yeah,
and the good thing is I've kind of come out the other side of that, and now
and you
the
can share
actual
your experiences with people, and you
oh, it's
can.
it's 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 great, and because people keep telling me that I am excruciatingly honest, they seem to get something out of that, whereas I can't think of any other way to be really.
No, cool.
It's just people have seen my heart on the page. You
Yeah,
know, I've written 17 novels. I've sold hundreds of thousands of books, so people know bits of my heart and bits of my
yeah,
head, and so the least that I can do when people ask me questions is to give them an honest answer. So yeah, it's kind of nice to live within that sense of human authenticity. Um, it's there's many ups and there's many downs, but the good thing is that the writing has never left me as a joy. The act
yeah.
of writing, the act of a new idea or a new character trait or and even a new setting is just the best. I mean,
Don't you,
you know it yourself, don't you? That feeling of that'll be a good book.
yeah, and then writing it as well is good as well. You think, oh, that's a good idea for a book. I'm going to write that, and you do.
Yeah, yeah.
One of the things
Then
I found about Hull in the area is that it's like, apart from you and maybe a couple of other writers, nobody writes about our area
no,
or East Yorkshire. So there's
no.
places that are untouched. It's like walking through fresh snow.
Oh
No
yeah,
one, no
completely.
one has walked in these places. No one's written about Pocklington. No one's been to Cherryburton in 1709. I have.
Exactly. Well,
And
that's the
so,
thing. I mean,
I've lived that life, and I really enjoy being able to sort of go into places that no writer's ever been. This
it's
is
it's
totally new.
virgin territory. Yeah,
But then, if
and
you think about it, every writer is walking through virgin territory. Every time they write a sentence on a page, pretty
yeah.
much no one's written that sentence before. So we're all, going into the unknown.
Do
But
you do you find do you find now? How many books have you written now, Chris? Where are you at in
well,
your
I've
career?
written about 4 that are under my name, but I've written plenty more that are, sort of they're there, but they're not under my name because they're dreadful.
What? No. What was the one that you wrote that was set in Papua New Guinea?
Oh, that's one of my dreadful books that I hid, Marco.
Oh, really? That's not dreadful. That's a really good book. I
Well, it
read.
does okay, but it's not under my name.
Okay. No, it'll come back to me. I've got a copy of that somewhere. It's a
Yeah,
real.
I remember giving you one years and
Yeah.
years ago. Yeah,
No,
I
that's a
kind of
really, really
swept
good
all the
book.
fantasy stuff away and thought, oh yeah, I've written quite a few fantasy books, and I thought, look, this is not what I want to write. So I started writing about here, and I started writing like kind of more literary fiction, and
Yeah.
I never thought I'd be that kind of writer, but it turns out that I am.
Yeah.
And historical things, and things that were true,
Yeah.
and I just find that works for me. I mean, fantasy's fine, but yeah, I'm not really a fantasy writer. But
Yeah.
those books do okay. But hopefully nobody will find out it's me.
It is strange though, isn't it? Because there's only been a couple of times in my career that I've written a book that I've thought this is a nailed on hit, right? This
Oh,
is an
right.
absolute. If this doesn't if this doesn't knock some of those bell ends off the top 10, then I don't know what's
And
gonna
did they?
work. Nah, sunk without trace. Sunk without trace. And then other books that I've thought, oh shit, I owe them a book. I said I'd have them a book by the end of the month, and I've just churned something out. And
Give
suddenly,
it
and you know,
away.
you find you're in, you sit in the Amazon top five in some obscure chart for days and weeks and months at a time, and you think, who's reading this? It's not really
Yeah,
very
I know.
good.
It is very
But
strange that, and sometimes they go mad. Do you find when you're writing a book though? I find this. I mean, I'm just finishing my latest one right now, and I always think, oh, this is dreadful, and then maybe in the same, maybe 30 seconds later, I think, oh, this is amazing.
oh
Do
yeah.
you get that feeling as well?
Oh well, the thing is, one good line at the end of the day can make up for hours and hours of ghastly writing. Um, I mean, there are times during a day of poor writing when I am so full of self-loathing that
Yeah,
I'm literally sat there looking at my traitorous fingers and going, "You have failed me. You, I'm giving you beautiful words, and you can't do anything with them."
yeah,
And then suddenly you'll come up with a line just as you're about to finish for the day, and you're like, "Oh, right, okay, I can still write." But I,
yeah.
do you have that terror that one day you will just not be able to write anymore?
Um, no, not really. I mean, I've thought about what it would be like if I couldn't write anymore, but a lot of the time I just go and I write and I think, oh, well, this is rubbish, but I'm just going to write it anyway. And then you can usually salvage something from that in the end. Because if I was going
Yeah,
to be a perfectionist, I'd never get anything done.
yeah.
You
Well,
just got. I mean, you must be the same, Marco. Because I mean, you write voluminously. I mean, you've written a lot of novels.
well, if I'm absolutely honest, I don't quite know how I do find the time. I really genuinely how my books emerge. I'm not really 100% sure because for the past 5 years, I've had a very a small person in the
Yeah,
house,
yeah, yeah,
um, and I mean I've had kids for years, but I've now got a 5 year old, and how I managed to do all the things that I do and make sure that she's taken care of is extra. I just don't know how it's possible. I think, and it's quite key this, and it's not what anybody will put in any of their self help guides. Is I tend to write the correct words first, um, and I don't ever want to examine that too carefully in case it goes away.
so it
But
tends to work straight away.
yeah, because if the key is to make sure that you know what you want your book to be before you sit
Yeah,
down to write it, and
yeah.
then you're not thinking, oh, well, did it happen in March or did it happen in September?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Things like that. Pick one, get on with it.
Yeah,
Um,
that's true. Yeah, that's very true. Do you not find
and
yourself going back and changing things around? You say, oh, he had a
I
handgun in his right hand, and now he's got his handgun in the left hand. And
I
you have to go
don't
back and change it.
I don't know. I try and look at my work through a reader's perspective, right? And I don't know if you did the same thing yourself, but when you're reading, you don't start with a blank canvas in your head and fill it in illustratively based upon the descriptions of the writer. You get a general sense
Yeah,
of
yeah,
someone. So it doesn't really matter to me whether or not I spend days poring over these fine details to try and explain the exact fox fur and flame
all right, yeah,
color of this lady's hair, because you'll enjoy the words, you'll surf on the words as a reader, but you won't change your mental picture. No two people have got the same vision of the Shire. you know
very
that
true, very true.
so so sometimes it's just, it doesn't matter if it's September or March.
Yeah,
It's, have you given us a sense of where this is happening? Have you given me a sense of this person?
yeah. No,
Um,
I agree with you. It's not always about the
so
details, is it?
no, but I mean, with the historical stuff, you want to get that right, just in case
Yeah, well,
some
I try to, but
Professor Nigel comes along and tells you that you've got it wrong. But
I've got a really good sort of heavy, a really good musician friend of mine who's also a doctor of 18th century history.
oh,
So I just talked to him. And he reads the books. He says, "Oh no, they wouldn't say that. Oh no, the door wouldn't have opened that in. It would have opened out, not in." And
Oh,
you think, okay,
aye. That's
okay.
handy. That is
Yeah,
handy.
but he also teaches you about the world and about the politics and about how people would feel. And he teaches me lots about the religion that I wouldn't have known about. So that's really handy to talk to someone like that who's got a real feeling of the period. But
Well,
details, I do know what you mean. Yeah, you can be too detailed sometimes,
you
but
can, well,
often I have to go back and fix the plot as well.
yeah. Well, I
He
mean,
said that to her then, not afterwards.
I'm a big fan of the asterisk. Um, bec
Okay.
be, so I'll be typing away, and then my character will need to go into a place, wherever that place may be, to meet a man to find out some plot. And when all said and done, the bits I'm interested in are about the humanity, are
Yeah,
about
yeah,
the
yeah,
about the exchange, and about two people whose paths collide, and what that does to them as people.
yeah,
So if there's a bit that if I don't know, if it's like, because I've written historical stuff as well, and if I don't know whether he'd have a tankard, I don't write, and I just asterisk. I'll come back because
yeah,
I
yeah,
know
yeah.
he's
That's right.
drinking. I know
Yeah,
he's
yeah,
drinking, and
yeah, yeah.
I can factor that into his character, but I don't need to know whether or not he opens a, whether it's a hand pull or anything like that.
Absolutely. I mean, yeah,
So,
that kind of detail is not needed, is it? Really, it's the human emotion, and that's why I think writing historical fiction is not actually quite as difficult as people make out, because they're still
oh,
humans. They still go to the toilet. They still fall in love.
exactly.
Really,
I mean,
it
that's
could be Star
I'd
Trek, or it could be
I'd love
1850.
to write a caveman novel,
Yeah, they'd
because
be
I
good.
think I think it would be universal. I still think I think if you went back and found a couple of early hominids sat by a fire,
Them.
I think you'd have a couple of grumpy blokes, whinging, and I think there'd be a couple of cave women not quite sure they've made the right decision, and I think with those universal themes, I
Yeah,
think
you're
that's
right.
humanity. I
I mean, that's all
really,
books that you read, isn't it? There's all the same themes, whether you're writing crime or whether you're writing fantasy. It's the same thing. It's human emotion.
yeah,
And if you focus on that, you've cracked it, hopefully.
absolutely. Well, I mean, that's why I like crime, really, is because I think it all comes down to what the act of writing for me is creating a world and then lobbing a hand grenade into it,
Definitely. The
and
worst thing that can
seeing,
happen. Yeah.
yeah, seeing where they land. And crime permits that. And then it makes life very easy for me as a writer, because everybody who's caught up in this singular event of a murder, they're operating at a level of high emotional intensity. And I can channel that quite easily. I was a journalist for years. I've
Yeah.
seen that. So I can make that feel authentic.
Yeah.
I don't know how some of the literary novelists write about, essentially just what seems turgid ennui for pages upon pages upon pages.
Yeah.
And sometimes I think to myself, well, I've enjoyed the words, but if
Yeah.
somebody asks me what's happened, nothing, nothing,
Oh, well,
nothing.
yeah. Well, I know that. But and then crime writing is very moral. So
Yeah,
moral. McAvoy's a great character because he's a total goodie, isn't he?
yeah.
And
He's
he's
the
always going
hardest
to get it
one.
right. He's always going to look after you, and you can trust him. You could leave
Yeah.
your pipe with him. You could leave your wallet with him. He'd be all right.
Oh, you could leave your
And I
wife with
love that
him.
about him.
Yeah, there'd be no. He's very hard for me to write, because he has a massively he has such a correct
Yeah,
moral
he's good. He's
rectitude,
good.
and I'm not, at all. So
Right.
it's really, I have to channel what would a good person do in this environment.
Yeah.
And thankfully, he has a couple of people in his life that permit him to stay on this good course.
Yeah.
um, but the funny thing is, and obviously writing a police procedural over the course of 10 years, there's been quite a lot of changes in the way that the public interact with the police. And I actually am finding myself now at book 13 in my series that
Yeah.
McAvoy is having a bit of an existential crisis as to whether or not he really still believes that he's on the side of good and
Well,
justice
that's
and,
great. That's what
and
you should be
truth.
doing, Marco. I
Yeah,
think that's
be,
really, really good. That's really exciting. I think to write about
Yeah,
that.
you think about it. I mean, there's a lot of people become police officers for very noble reasons.
Yeah.
They want to help, but then there's a lot of people who don't.
I think
Um,
there's more nice guys than not, and I think you talked to me about that because you said you met a lot of the detective constables, and they were just big nice guys.
exactly, and that's the thing. And I know a lot of the big nice guys and gals who do that job um, feel a sense of shame over some of the things that like the
Yeah.
Met have been up to,
Mhm.
and I think I'd be doing a disservice if I didn't give McAvoy a wobble accordingly.
You have
Um,
to, yeah, like sort of knock his moral compass a bit and make him do things that he might not be happy with doing, and that's what, yeah. Think about the
it's that
worst thing that can happen to your character, and then have that happen.
Yes, yeah. It's like it's that thing of his the questions that's affected McAvoy from day one is can I be a good police officer and a good man, and that
Yeah, there's the problem. Yeah,
yeah. Because I don't know about you. I mean, I struggle with those questions of am I living well quite a
yeah,
lot. And I think the only people who don't struggle with those questions are the ones who should.
yeah,
Um,
maybe, yeah,
that's why sometimes when I'm kicking Radio 4 out of the car while I'm driving along because of these malignant narcissists who don't realize that they're causing so much problems. And I think you're the ones who should be having the existential
yeah.
crisis, not the decent people.
Well, they're the people who tend to be in power, the people who don't think about that kind of thing. They're the
Yeah,
ones who tend to want to rise to the top of an organization.
yeah, they wouldn't
Whereas,
write books. They
no,
certainly
definitely
wouldn't
not.
write books.
Especially not when they're going to possibly fail. So
Exactly. Yeah.
I love the idea of the moral character because my latest one that I'm writing now is that he's a crime thriller set in Hull on Chance Ave in a taxi office.
Oh, I love it. Right.
So I've got my sort of gang boss who's kind of a goodie, and that's what I love about mobster films and gangland films because some of the bosses can be goodies. I mean, they do bad things,
Of
but they're
course.
still very good, and I like that sort of the idea that they can be good and bad at the same time.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I'm not used to writing about a modern world at the moment, so I find it kind of weird. But
Is
a
it
world of
first
mobile
person or
phones.
are you writing it first person or third person?
Yeah, no, I rate it first person. No, third person. Sorry, yeah, third person, but
Okay.
present tense actually, which is
Oh,
what you
even
do.
better. Oh, that's good. That's right. Oh, that gives you that sense of immediacy. If you're
Yeah, that
struggling,
racy,
you just look out the window and describe what you see.
definitely. But
Oh,
and you do that a lot, and I probably pinched that off you, Marco. To be honest,
oh
I
well,
remember
it is my joy to disseminate these concepts that nobody else has ever tried before me. Obviously, I
no, but
can't even remember.
I remember reading Dark Winter a long time ago, long time ago, and thinking, and it's in the sort of present tense, thinking, yeah, this works for me.
Mm.
It's
A lot of
quick.
people don't like it, and even after all these years, people still say, "Oh, I couldn't get on with the present tense."
Yeah, I've heard
And
that
I
as
mean,
well.
it's to their own, I
I find
suppose.
it hard to write in the past tense, to be honest. It seems a little bit wooden and yeah,
I feel like you lose some of that uncertainty as to how this ends. If something
yeah,
is past tense, this has demonstrably happened.
yeah,
This
yeah.
has been wrapped up. I love the idea of writing a first person present tense that ends mid sentence. Um, and nobody and that's just it. They just stop writing the end. And you never know whether or not there's just been a bullet gone through their head, or
Cool.
it's just that you're caught up in the action and now the action stopped.
Yeah,
But unfortunately, we have to deal with people like editors and
we
publishers
do.
who,
How
who
important is it for you to sort of explain the full story to your readers? Do you leave a lot? Because I sometimes do this. You leave things and you say, "Well, look, I really don't know what's happened. You're
mm,
going to have to work that out as well. So you're going to have the readers are going to have to do something like that."
it's I'm pretty lucky, really, in that most of because I plot quite tightly. If there's anything ambiguous, it's because I've made an ambiguous choice. Um, but no, I like the idea. My favorite reviews are the ones that say that they have no idea what's going on for 80% of the story, and then everything comes together at the end.
That's nice. Yeah,
Right. Of course it bloody does. It's a crime novel.
it's
The
designed
people
to
who
do that.
say, "Oh, I stopped reading halfway through because I didn't know what was going on." Well, I'm like, well, the Janet and John sections over that way.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
writing for people who quite aren't quite so hard of thinking.
yeah,
So stick with me. Um, so no, I try and make sure everything comes together and is tied with a bow. But if
yeah.
there are an ambiguity there or two. Um, it's not because I've forgotten, it's because it's either
Yeah, yeah.
unimportant or because I want to leave that sort of hanging cadence of wistfulness. if
Yes, no, I agree. You don't need to explain everything to your reader. They're not daft. They can work a lot of things out for themselves.
well, if
How
we
much do
sorry,
you
go on.
plot, Marco? Do you have like detailed things about what's going to happen in every chapter, or is it just poof? I think is it Planter or Potzer or Gardner or whatever they call it?
Plotter or pantser, that's
That's
it.
it.
I used to be a plotter, so I knew precisely everything that had to happen
What
down
every by
to
every chapter?
that. I mean, going back way back, I really genuinely felt as though I had to make sure that it was all perfectly structured, and therefore it took all the joy out of the actual writing of it
That's true. Yeah, yeah, I'd agree with that.
because I'd structured it all so much that kind of I'd already had that dopamine hit of
Yeah, yeah,
creativity. So then it was just a case. It was like painting by numbers because I'd already done it.
yeah,
Um,
yeah, yes,
so now, basically, what I do is I'll work out 20 to 25 happenings within the novel, but the idea of where it takes place, who the person is that's going to impart the next plot point that moves us forward, I do that by the seat of my pants.
yeah, yeah,
Because I know what this chapter has to contain. I know the thing that has to resonate. But I'm a great believer that even the best novels, you should be able to boil down to 500 words and say these are the events that happened within
yeah.
this novel. And I try and do that before I start, and then see if
Cool.
I've managed it by the end.
You're
And
right.
it's quite a useful tool to have, to be honest. So
I mean, my stories are all very simple, really. Very, very simple. This happens, this happens, this happens. That's it. And the rest of it is just like colouring in. So I enjoy just colouring in basically and filling. And I mean, the plot, you can boil it down into a couple of sentences. That's it. Bloke goes
yeah,
here, that happens, that happens. And so I enjoy writing and to see how it's going to end up. Because
yeah,
usually I know the ending, but I don't quite
yeah.
know what's going to happen. And
Exactly. It's that feeling of you you've sort of plugged yourself into something that's moving along, and you're kind of involved in its momentum, but similarly there is that sense of, oh, what if we just nudge the track and
yeah. Do you
um
find that things happen in your book that you didn't expect, or characters did things that you didn't
oh
expect?
yeah, yeah.
Isn't it
And
strange? Yeah.
it is strange because sometimes you can have it in your mind that a character is going to be a certain kind of spirit or a certain kind of person, and then two or three lines in they're talking in a way that you never intended.
Yeah.
And you think to yourself, well, this is happening for a reason. What, like, why has this occurred? Because the one thing I never do is plot dialogue. I mean, dialogue should be just
Yeah.
naturally occurring, shouldn't it? So sometimes there are. I think, well, do I go back and push this person back into the way that I wanted them to do it, or not? Um, but 9 times out of 10, I do just let it flow. So
Yeah.
I'll have a character who started off they were going to be one thing, and by the end of it, there's something else.
Yeah.
So um,
I mean, I find that with plot as well. So sometimes at the end of a book, I'll know what's going to happen, but it doesn't end up quite happening the way I expected it to.
yeah,
And it's a
yeah,
satisfactory ending, and I'm happy with it. But it wasn't quite how I envisaged it. How
yeah,
do you do a lot of your dreaming, Marco? Because I mean, I think about. I don't spend any time writing down plans of what I'm going to do, but I spend a lot of time running and thinking about it.
yeah,
I
yeah.
guess you do a lot of thinking about it as well.
I, 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 I drive past my house so often. Um,
Is that when you think when you drive it?
yeah. Well, I never stop thinking. I mean, the thing is, I mean, I can watch it. I can watch a new series on Netflix, right, and get to the end of it and realize that I haven't taken in anything,
Yeah,
anything. My eyes have been staring at the shiny flicker box in the corner.
yeah, because you're
Um,
thinking your own story, right?
yeah, because and I've always been the same. Long before I was writing professionally. When I was a kid, I used to be halfway through a movie, and my mind would drift off into what might happen, and I'd be happy enough in that.
Yeah,
So
I mean,
the difficulty is then when you try and tell your mates, wouldn't it be better if?
uh,
And yeah, they were never quite on my wavelength. Is more
that's
like,
hard.
yeah,
and when people ask you, they say, "Oh, tell me about your book," and you think, "Oh man, I can't really do that. You have to read it."
Yeah,
You
that's
know, 'cause you-
that's still the bit I hate most. I mean, I absolutely adore being a writer. It's the best, and as long as you're not so fragile, and as long as your ego isn't made of gossamer and breadcrumbs, then it is a wonderful way to live. You get to write stories that people read, but there are some bits about the gig that are hellish, and trying to describe what your
writing
book
blurb,
about is the worst, isn't it?
so writing a synopsis.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I, I,
Yeah.
I hate
Or
writing
when people
synopsis.
say, "Can you send us a 100 word bio?" and I'm like, "Oh,
Oh
can't."
mate,
Yeah, just Google it. There'll be somebody else will have done one before. Don't. I hate all that. And that's the thing. I mean, as a journalist, and I've done PR and all that
yeah. But
dreadful
it's about
soul
you. It's
destroying.
hard, isn't it? You want to. You think, how can I sell myself? I want to be funny, but serious.
Yeah.
It's tough.
No, there's no formula for it. I'm kind of lucky really in that I think I was kind of created in a lab to be a novelist. I think right. My joy is to read, and if I'm not reading, it's to think about the books I have read or I'm going to write. My favorite people are all creative. It gives me an outlet for the things that I think or that I wonder if I think.
Yeah,
That aspect of exploration that you get to do within a novel. I love that. I love trying to work out what I think about stuff, and the page is the place for me to do that because otherwise I drive myself insane.
yeah.
So no, I can't thank the world enough for giving me the opportunity. Really,
Well, you kind of giving yourself the opportunity, Marco, really, because you're the one who sits there and smashes it out every day.
but
Yes, the
what?
world's maybe giving you a few breaks, but not as many breaks as you've forced yourself. So
But
I think
I don't know what
you've
like
done as much work as anyone, maybe
what do
more.
people do? What do people do? Genuinely, in all honesty, what do people do when they have to get up and do something that they despise for the
Yeah.
next 40 years?
Well,
And
I
the
know, but
best
that's the world's problem, isn't it? I mean, I know we know loads of people like that who do that every
we
day.
do, but it distresses me so much
Yeah.
that the only way that I live in constant terror of the tap on the shoulder that says to me, "You've got to go back to work." Um, and I mean, I do 60, 70 hours a week
Yeah.
of manuscript assessments, teaching, creative writing tuition, and I try and get enough time to be able to write books within that. So I'm not a lazy man.
No,
I'm a
no.
very
Yeah.
driven man, but it's all I still have that working class terror of being told you've had your fun. Now go on, you've got a shift.
Yeah.
You've got to go work back at the press association doing showbiz,
Not good,
and
mate.
just just shoot me in the head. I'd be
Well, I know.
happy.
I mean, I still work. I still teach, but I teach English, and it's not actually bad because I just end up chatting to people, and it is quite
That
nice. It's
yeah,
quite a sweet job,
yeah.
and I'm
That's
not
the
sure if
thing.
I could do the writing full time because and I'm used to talking to people all day. That's what I do, and so I think
Yeah,
writing all day is hard. I
it
mean, so
was
if you give me
easier.
a day to write, sorry, Marco.
I was just going to say it was easier when I was still a journalist to write my books because everybody I met every day, I could just steal their characteristics.
Yes, yes,
I'd just pluck these wonderful lines from the air because I'd heard them all day. Whereas now, I spend a lot of time on my own or with a 5-year-old,
yeah.
and you can usually tell what age my kids were at any given moment in my work
What they
because
think? Yeah,
yeah, because they're actually in there because it's all the other people I've got to talk to. Um,
yeah.
so yeah, sometimes I do miss that interaction because it gives you new ideas and things.
It
But
does. Yeah, and
yeah,
also I find that if I've got less time to write, I write more.
yeah,
So, for example, I've got loads of work on, loads of jobs on. I can write a lot more because I squeeze it in little 5 minute bursts of energy.
you've got to do it better, haven't you? That's the thing, You've
But if you give me all day to write, then I'll just look out the window
yeah,
or play the
yeah.
guitar or do something like that. Well,
I
we're running
I
out of time, though, Marco.
You know what?
Tell us
I've
about your
been
latest
staring
book.
at a frozen picture of my own face for the past hour and a half, I think.
Have you enjoyed it?
I've had a lovely time. We shouldn't leave it 10 years until the
We
next
shouldn't,
time
mate. No.
I
So
see
tell
you.
us about your latest book, though, Marco. What's
Oh,
out at the moment that people should
the
get?
next one that comes out is called The Whispering Dead. It's a sequel to the Mausoleum, which came out about
Oh yeah,
4 or 5 years ago. It's kind of a spy story. It's as much about international politics, about it's about what happens if the things that the West does in these little tiny out of the way places followed us home. Um,
Ooh.
and about it's a bit of an exploration of how to do the right thing in almost unbearable circumstances. But on top of that, it's kind of an origin story for Judy Dench's version of M as well.
Oh, okay, she's good,
I
isn't
think
she?
it's probably against some kind of copyright law, but
Oh no, pinch it. And what
yeah.
book would you say people should definitely read of yours? If they were going to read one book that you've written, what should they read?
The best book I've ever written is The Zealot's Bones, a historical novel
Yeah,
set
yeah,
in Hull.
yeah.
It's a serial killer novel set during a cholera outbreak in 1850. I think the Times called it beautifully putrid, which I can live with completely. And for a better exploration of all of this and what goes on inside the flip top bin of my skull, my memoir, Peace of Mind,
It's also a
might
good
be
one.
a
I,
one to
I would
dive
kick off
into.
with Dark Winter, to be honest. I would kick off with that.
Yeah, which still pays the bills.
It's a good book. It's a really, really, really good book. It's a really, really well written, good story. I really like it. Thumbs
Oh,
up from
cheers,
me.
dude. Cheers. What about you? Which one? Where should
Well,
people start?
North Sea Tale, Murder Mystery on a Trawler. It outsells everything I've written by a million miles. And someone's just picked it up. I've just sold the film rights as well, so someone's picked it up
Oh,
for that.
fabulous. Oh,
Only very early days, so I'm not sure what's going to happen. But it's
hey, as
nice
long
to
as
be, contacted by someone and they say, "Oh, can I make it into a film?" And you go, "Yeah."
of course you no, yeah. Oh, I've sold the rights several times now.
All
Um,
right.
but don't take my situation as essentially
Oh, because
selling the
I know it
rights.
doesn't come off. A lot of things don't happen, do
Well,
they?
yeah, but it's a different vibe each time, and it's not for the want of trying.
Yeah.
Um, so they want to do it. It just doesn't always actually work out. But
Yeah, exactly.
yeah, I
There'll
mean,
be a
yeah,
million
that
things
would
that
be
stop it.
a brilliant drama. I'd love that.
Yeah, hopefully. I don't think they would set it in Hull, though. I think they would probably set it in Scotland, which is
Oh,
kind of
really?
sad.
Well, don't let them.
Yeah.
Don't.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I've been toying with it. I've been talking to the director quite a lot, and I don't mind really if they set it in Scotland. It's fine with me.
Oh, really? Oh, you see, I've
Yeah.
always had that Hull or nowhere deal breaker.
All
I've,
right.
uh, but that's probably why I'm recognised as very difficult to work with.
I don't think that's true, is it, mate?
Oh yeah, yeah. Believe me. In London terms, I am a nightmare. In northern terms,
You're all right.
I just want what I want. And I'm not easily impressed by skinny chai lattes and stuff I just
Yeah.
so I'll literally say, let's have the conversation now over the phone. You give me the
Yeah.
money you would have given me for my train fare and my dinner, and
Easy. Yeah.
yeah, but apparently that's me being awkward. So that's just
Mm.
culture clash. What can I tell you?
Yes, indeed. North and south. So, what are you working on right now, Marco?
I'm writing the 13th McAvoy novel,
Oh,
which is currently called Unfinished Symphony, but it might be called something else by the time it comes out. And it's another murder mystery, but it's a question of was the person murdered at all, and which of the people within this small village had the most reason to kill this otherwise very likable guy.
ooh,
He's
motives.
basically he's got money, and everybody in the village knows that they're going to get a little something when he goes. So,
Oh, it's,
um,
it's 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 intriguing stuff.
absolutely,
It
yeah.
looks
I'll
like
tell you more nearer the time. I think
it
are we
looks
at
like
the end
we're,
of
we're
our
done. But
hour?
thanks to everyone who gave the comments. Yeah,
Yeah,
so
sorry for
thanks
not
for
answering
people who
any of your
commented.
questions. Um,
We didn't even answer any questions at all.
yeah, but we did. We answered each other's questions, mate. That's the
Yeah, we
important.
did. Yeah, and it was just a chat, so that's good. It's good to talk to you, Marco.
And
Always is,
you,
mate.
yeah, give my regards to your brother as well. I do think
Yeah, I
fondly
don't
of him.
see him that much. I think we've gone off air now. I don't know if we have actually, but yeah, I don't see him that much. these days. He lives down in London, and he's given up his journalist career to become an actor.
Oh wow, he always was full of bright ideas, isn't he?
Yeah. Well, so we'll see. Hopefully, it'll go well. Well, thanks very much, Kim.
That's
But yeah, so I'm just finishing off my taxi novel, which has been good to write, and I've been watching a lot of Get Carter.
Of course.
Which is really a Hull film. I know it's set in Newcastle, but it's everything is about it's from Hull.
Absolutely, it's got a very Hull vibe. Yeah. Have you read the other one by Ted Lewis, Plender?
No, but I've been told to.
Oh, you should.
And I'll get onto it. Is that quite good?
Yeah, it's so good. Yeah, speak to Nick Triplow about Ted Lewis. You'll never stop him talking about Ted Lewis, but you'll enjoy the conversation. That's the important thing.
Yeah, and Nick Quantrill, he's a big fan, isn't he, as well?
Yeah,
I was talking to him a few weeks back.
Yeah, Nick's a good lad as well. Yeah, we're very lucky. If there was ever going to be a Bloomsbury set anywhere outside of the M25, I think Hull would be the place. I mean, we wouldn't make much of a boy band, but nevertheless.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. We'd give it a go.
Well, you would, aye? Yeah. We'll have to do a live Black Kes sing along on Crime Book Club. Can you imagine? It would be so joyful.
Well, I mean, we were gigging last night. It was our Halloween gig last night. I was trying to play my washboard in a zombie outfit. I'm covered in.
If that isn't a great first line, I don't know what it is. Trying to play my washboard in a zombie outfit.
Well, I'll definitely write the Black Kes novel, but I don't think we're quite finished yet. There's been so many crazy things happen. I think there's going to be a few more.
Yeah, you're still only young. You have time on your side.
We're all only young, aren't we?
Exactly. Yeah. Although I've got to be honest, I just had a very large roast dinner before coming to talk to you, and I feel like an 80-year-old who's just been poured into a pillowcase. As far to be honest,
are you in bed at the moment then? Noir?
I am. Yeah, because it is the only place in the house where I get any peace. And even then, it's only if Nicola has wrangled Artemisia into submission. And taken her to the far side of the house. I did have a lovely office at my old house, but then we decided to downsize slightly. And the one thing that pays for all of this is my work, and it's the one room that we were able to sacrifice was the room in which I do that work.
Isn't that bizarre?
Oh yeah, and the girls couldn't possibly share.
Sorry to interrupt you.
No worries, Sam.
I'm coming in purely because my internet just died and I've been on the phone to Carl's panicking and flapping, and you'd carried on. You were there, but I couldn't stop you. So just in case it goes again, I'm going to cut you off, I'm afraid.
That's fine. I was wondering, yes, but no.
You were just going to carry on for another hour, weren't you, Marco?
Have I been frozen looking like...
No, you looked fine on ours.
Because I look like Greg Wallace having a stroke on my screen at the moment. And it's a horrendous vision. So...
No, you've been moving, mate. It's been fine.
Oh, that's fine then.
You've been fine here. Well, give us a final quick recap of your latest book and where people can buy it, please.
Go for it, Marco.
Last one that came out was Anatomy of a Heretic. It's a story of two spies, essentially two assassins who come together on a sailing ship bound for Batavia in the 17th century. It's a true story, but it's my own take on it. It's again putrid and vile and poetic and beautiful, and I'm rather proud of it. And as such, no buggers read it. So it's probably available for $2.99 in the works somewhere near you, I should imagine.
And lovely Chris, what about you?
So this is my favourite book. It's called The North Sea Tales.
Look, Marco, he's come prepared.
Well, he's a professional, right? I'm just a twat. So
I walked right into that one.
Mystery set on a trawler in 1974 about a young decky learner Danny who goes to sea for the first time and someone gets killed on the boat. It's how he deals with it. It's all about Hull and the history of the fishing industry. And it's a good story. It does really well. I really like it. Don't quite know how I wrote it, but it just sort of popped out. So
Thank you both so much.
Pardon?
Thank you both so much. I've been looking forward to this for ages, so thank you.
It's been a
Thanks for
pleasure.
having us
Thanks,
on,
Sam. Good to see you too, Chris.
You
Thank
too,
you to
Marco. Take
everyone
care,
who's
fella.
watched us today, and good night.